Hello everyone, this is Sethaldor with his Holy Paladin Glyph Guide here. I'm going to attempt to do PvE and PvP glyph setup in one video, so forgive me if it's a little fast. What I'm going to do is run down each of the glyphs pertaining to Holy in some way, and then in the end I'm going to tell you the setup of glyphs I would pick and why for PvE and PvP respectively. But first, let's take a quick look at the new glyph interface. We have our minors and our majors still, and now we have a new prime glyph slots, which it makes it a total of 3 tiers and 9 possible glyphs. They changed the way glyphing works as well. Once you buy and learn a glyph, it stays in your book forever, and you can use it as many times as you want. However, in order to replace an old glyph you've already placed, you need to purchase Vanishing Powder, which you can see down here I have 5. And you would click that, and then click on the glyph you'd like to remove, or simply shift right click the glyph. So without further ado, let's start looking at the Holy Paladin glyphs. We have Divine Favor, which increases Divine Favor's duration by 10 seconds. Exorcism, which causes Exorcism to leave a dot worth 20% of the damage it did. Seal of Insight, which, while Seal of Insight is active, increases the effect of all healing spells by 5% when cast from you. Word of Glory Glyph increases the healing done by Word of Glory by 10%. Scroll down here. Holy Shock increases the critical effect chance of Holy Shock by 5%. And now let's look at the major glyphs. Beacon of Light increases Beacon's duration by 30 seconds. Divine Plea now gives you an additional 5% of your total mana back. Light of Dawn reduces the cooldown of Light of Dawn by 10 seconds and the amount healed by 20%. We also have Glyph of Cleansing, which reduces the mana cost of your cleanse if you so desire. Glyph of Divinity, your Lay on Hands grants twice as much mana as normal and also grants you as much mana as it grants the target. Let's see, what else? We have Hand of Salvation. Hand of Salvation no longer permanently reduces threat over time, but instead reduces all threat as long as the hand lasts. Holy Wrath. Your Holy Wrath now also stuns elementals and dragonkin. And Long Word. Your Word of Glory heals for 50% less up front, but provides a 50% hot. That's actually quite an interesting one. It's debatable whether that's good or not. And then I can sum up pretty much all of the Paladin minors with the exception of Lay on Hands, which reduces Lay on Hands cooldown by 2 minutes. Everything else reduces the mana cost of the buff it's related to. Reduces mana cost of Seal of Truth, Justice, Blessing of Might, Seal of Insight, Blessing of Kings, and Seal of Righteousness. Yeah, minors still kind of suck for pallies. So, as for PvE glyphs, I would definitely take Seal of Insight for 5% more healing done while that's active. Otherwise, pretty much seals are useless for a Holy Pally, with some exceptions. And then I would probably take Word of Glory. The more effective your instant heals are, the better you'll be doing when you're on the move. And then after that, it's debatable. I personally would go for 10 seconds more on Divine Favor, because you get the 20% bonus crit and haste Divine Favor gives for 10 more seconds, which is nice, versus the 5% given from Holy Shock, which would be the 2 you'd choose from in a PvE spec. Now, let's look at major glyphs. As for major glyphs, I would definitely take Divine Plea. 5% more mana back from that is definitely nice. Although it does still cut your healing done, there are periods in the fight where it's not as healing intensive and you can use it to get your mana back. If you can get 5% more back in that short amount of time, it's better. Because the longer you have that running, or the less mana you get while it's running, it's less beneficial. Cost-benefit analysis. Divinity's nice, I guess. I don't find myself using Lay on Hands much. If anything, I use it on myself for the mana gain, so perhaps that's a good thing to pick up if you find yourself with mana problems. Hand of Salvation, I need to explain this one. What it does now is it takes the threat that the target had generated at the time of the cast and reduces it by 2% every second for 5 seconds. So it takes a solid number when it's cast and drops based on that, versus all the threat you're creating while it's dropping your original threat, it does not affect the percentage that it drops. Whereas this right here reduces all threat created while Hand of Salvation is on the target. So instead of reducing the previous chunk of threat you had by 10%, and then you making 20% while it's dropping your 10%, this now takes all the threat you're generating, and no matter how much it is, it will reduce it by a total of 10%. So if you choose to pop your cooldowns right after you get a normal Hand of Salvation on you, then Hand of Salvation essentially isn't really going to be that helpful because you're burning even faster. Whereas if this gets thrown on you and you pop your cooldowns, then it's not going to matter as much because that huge threat gen is going to get dropped 10%. So if you have someone who has threat issues in the party, go for it. I don't think it's worth a major slot, but different groups have different problems. Holy Wrath, pass. Longword, if you find yourself needing a hot in PvE, like there's a large group damage thing going on, and you can get your holy power up fast, and you can start throwing, Word of Glory on a bunch of different people, then perhaps that's good, but honestly, I prefer just the large chunk heal from Word of Glory, as it's really effective right now. So, for PvE healing, I would take Beacon as well, because the less times you have to cast that, the less mana you have to give up for it. And Light of Dawn is debatable. Having it 10 seconds early every time is really nice. The 20% nuke to damage, or to healing done, I haven't noticed too much of an issue with it. I often run with this. So I'm going to throw that on as well. That would be my 3 picks as of now. Keep in mind, a lot of the glyphing changes per fight based on the fight strategies. That's why you can buy Vanishing Powder and you can re-glyph in a dungeon now, easily. So let's take a look at minors very briefly. Lay on Hands, of course, that's good for every spec. And then really whatever you find yourself casting frequently. If people die and get battle resed, it might be a good idea to have the glyphs for the blessings, so the mana cost is reduced. If you find yourself getting dispelled a lot, you can throw up for Seal of Insight or something like that. It's really, minors are just whatever the hell you want. So, now for primes, for PvP, I would still take the Seal of Insight glyph and the Word of Glory glyph. And then, because I like to be able to do damage, and I don't want rogues to come back at me after they do their little runaway, if they're not smart enough to use their Cloak of Shadows, I like to have a dot on them even as a healer. So I personally use Glyph of Exorcism. You might be able to use Judgment as well, which increases the damage of your judgments by 10%. Not a bad idea. The Glyph of Holy Shock has a bit more use in PvP, in my opinion, because if you crit the enemy more often, you'll be pushing out more damage, which is good. As for majors, I would stick with the definitely the Light of Dawn, and the other 2 would be debatable as to what you choose. Glyph of Hammer of Justice, might be a decent idea, so you can get a little more range when you stun someone because they're chasing you. Let's see, what else? Turn Evil wouldn't be a bad idea if you have a Fellhunter, on you. You can simply just turn around, click that, and he'll be off running. So not a bad idea there. If you find yourself having to spam Cleanse and it's giving you mana issues, then you could grab Glyph of Cleansing. But honestly, I would just use the same 3 that I used for PvE. Because if I find myself with mana problems, pop Divine Plea, I'll get more mana back. More often I can cast Light of Dawn. This is classified as a heal on yourself as well as other people. So even if it's just you running away from something, you could click that and get a heal. That's another self-heal every 20 seconds, I believe, because it drops it by 10. And then Beacon of Light, if you throw that on someone, you can forget it for an extra 30 seconds, which is just nice in general. As for the miners, again, really Glyph of Lay on hands just in case. And then if you find yourself getting dispelled, probably your preferred blessing. And then Insight, if you really, really wanted to be hardcore about it. Glyph of Insight would be recommended for miners as well. And now I'll show you how Vanishing Powder works briefly. You buy it from, at least in Ironforge, the inscription supplies. In everywhere else it would be the inscription supplier. You buy a stack of 5 for 32 silver. And then you go into your Glyphs tab and you either click... Oh, no, you can't do it that way. You have to shift right click to remove a glyph. And then this notification window pops up, tells you the cost, and you can say yes, and it's virtually instant. So that has been Glyphs for PvE and PvP healing with Sethaldor on the server Blade's Edge in the Guild Sacrilege. Thank you for watching my WoW guides, and please rate, subscribe, and comment if you liked. If you didn't like it, go ahead and thumbs down. Feedback's feedback. Go ahead and subscribe. Thanks a bunch, and see you next time.